Hello and welcome to the show. This week's FailRace Vs The Community was C-Class Classic Minis, and we start at Long Beach, a track that I very much like, and I really wanted to run this because I don't get too many chances to use it because it's only really on Forza 5. However, there are certain risks that go with Long Beach. As we come in towards the first corner, there was already a bit of bumping and barging going on. That is the problem with a very narrow track trying to fit an awful lot of cars into the same space. Admittedly, very small cars still got very, very crowded, and as we exit the roundabout, all hell broke loose. I tried to find a gap, didn't work, and everybody all got spun round. I did not come off so well from all of this. I broke my suspension at the front, and broken suspension on here is horrible. There were a lot of cars. I think there's 2 weeks in a row now we've had a huge first lap incident. Not really surprising at Long Beach though, as there's somebody spun a little bit further round at the front, and the people who had started sort of on pole towards the front end of the grid had got away from all of the chaos and had made a little bit of a break for it, which I'm very envious of, as whenever I set the grid to random on Forza 5, it puts me at the back every single race. So yeah, I was envious of these people that had managed to avoid all of the mess at the start of the race. Now, these cars are C-Class, and I told everybody they've got to be kept front-wheel drive. However, you could do whatever else you wanted to them. So many of these were running engine swaps, but there was a lot of variation in the way that you upgraded your cars. As you can see here, the blue Mini is very quick through the corners, but struggles in a straight line. The white Mini likes to go up on 2 wheels, and the green one at the front has quite a lot of straight line speed. So you could kind of choose what area to focus on. My car was a straight line, or more of a straight line speed car with a little bit of handling thrown in. You kind of wanted to try and get a good balance, because you know, depending on what tracks you were going to end up at. The problem with this race is, as much as I like the track, and there can be some very good racing at Long Beach, after the first quarter or first lap crash, there was not very many people close to each other. This is what the field looked like. I think about 7 cars ended up going through the pit lane with varying degrees of brokenness. I think me and a couple of people were damaged but stayed out because we had slightly less damage than some. As the red Mini goes up on 2 wheels, yeah, the field got really spread out, really messed up here because of that first lap crash, which is often, sadly, what can happen. The best racing was going on at the very front between the blue Mini and the green one. As I said previously, the straight line speed of the green Mini was coming in useful as he manages to get to the first corner first, and as long as he can get his car stopped and turned in without running too wide, he can keep the position as they come into the roundabout. A little bit of lag going on, but it's very hard to overtake through. It's very rare you get an overtake through the roundabout cleanly. Through this next corner again, these are a little bit tougher corners to overtake on, especially with the curves. The Minis were not liking the curves so much. Up towards this next place, this is a fairly decent overtaking opportunity if you're close enough, for which the blue Mini is not quite. The white car just starting to fall away a little bit behind them. We're very, very close to the wall there. On the exit of that corner, got a good overtaking opportunity up into this one. The blue car isn't close enough on the entrance, however gets fantastic drive through the corner, much better exit. Now there's a drag race down towards another good overtaking opportunity. Despite the slight straight line speed advantage of the green car, he's ended up on the outside, which is not where you want to be. If you can keep your foot down, you can go all the way around the outside there and hold the position, but the green car does not have enough grip, can't quite make the move stick, and has to slot in behind. And despite his straight line speed advantage, he is a little bit too far back now to try anything into turn 1. Yeah, it's an interesting place to try and build the car for Long Beach. There are plenty of corners to worry about, but there is also a couple of long straights that having that little bit more straight line speed can be quite advantageous. The curbs were being a bit of a pain for some of the cars. There was quite a lot of times vehicles were doing that, just going up on 2 wheels. Over the curbs. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it particularly, this being Forza 5. The Minis did not like the curbs. They got an awful long way onto their side. I was still circulating with me fairly poorly Mini. Engine, like mechanically wise, engine wise, and all of those bits, it was fine. It was the suspension that had taken a battering, and as you can see, it really doesn't handle very well. Forza 4, you damage your suspension and your car doesn't really feel any different. On here, you really notice it. Watch as we come into turn 1, under braking. The car is bobbing up and down, sorry. Nothing to do with what I'm doing on the brakes. That's what the car does. In towards the roundabout, it's even worse over the bumps. I have no control of that. That's just what the car does with broken front suspension. It is horrible to try and drive. And then through the next corner, I get it up a little bit on 2 wheels. The car behind me goes very sideways. Yeah, you do not want broken suspension on Forza 5. Your car is terrible from then on in. At the front, it was a fairly calm race, to be honest. After the insanity of lap 1, things were kind of fairly spread out. There wasn't a huge amount of overtaking, huge amount of action going on. As I said, the field just got too spread out from the start. It was to be the Blue Mini that would take the victory in the first race. There were some back markers around. It was a bit of a scrappy race, sadly, at Long Beach. We move on to round 2 at the Silverstone International Circuit, a place where there is much more runoff if things go wrong. You're not going to instantly bounce off a wall and then go straight back into the middle of the field, which is what happened at Long Beach. So yeah, I was hoping for a bit closer, perhaps a bit cleaner. There shouldn't be a huge first lap incident. And apart from one car that's managed to find the red tyre bundle in the background, I am not sure how he ended up going that far out of position. Everybody got through the opening few corners relatively safely. Then we come on to a fairly long back straight that will test your car for your straight line speed. And then we have a long train stretching all the way down the back straight of Minis. There's a little bit of overtaking going on as the gold car that we're following at the moment just has more power, perhaps different build on it, and can go past the blue vehicle. The blue car tries to get back at him on the inside around that corner, but can't quite manage to do it. The blue car would then lose another position as a light blue. There are many blue Minis. It's very confusing when I try and commentate over this, but they're all exactly the same bloody car. Yeah, would lose another position, and this is it's a little bit of a funny track in some respects here. It is very easy to sort of find yourself out of position for one corner and suddenly you're in trouble, as you can see here. The dark blue Mini is going to lose another position just from that one being slight out of position at the end of the straight. He's now lost 2 other places. Nearly lost one to the light blue Mini behind, but he covered that one off. The green car gets a little bit of a slide across one of the curbs yet again. The dark blue car dives up the inside, can't quite get it stopped. Gives the green car a bit of a bump. Light blue Mini goes past around the outside. The green cars rejoin the track in front of them, so no harm done there. And then the Mini train is back as we head on to the straight. Car we're following gets a really good drive onto the back straight, but was just struggling a little bit with his top speed. This is probably one of my favourite shots of Versus the Community. Just a train of Minis goes sailing past. There's me and someone else in the background as well. It was much closer from the start of this race. There is an awful lot of fire coming out of the back of this particular car as well. Not sure that should be doing that. Yeah, it was a much closer start to the race around Silverstone, which is not surprising. It should be. It's a much wider, much safer track. There's much more room for error. If you get it wrong, if you get a little bit too much understeer, then you can get away with it. And that's something that's very easy to do in these cars. They're C-Class, I think. Most of them were running around 200 horsepower in a front-wheel drive Mini, and there was quite a lot of understeer and then all of a sudden snap oversteer if you weren't careful with it, so it did catch a few people out. I proceed to go around the outside of a red Mini as we come onto the back straight. My car was pretty good in a straight line as I pull away from the vehicles behind me. Yeah, it was certainly proving to be interesting racing here at Silverstone. As I said, with the understeer, the red Mini got plenty of it at the end of the straight. I think almost everybody did that at some point with their car. They were just pushing the limits. I mean, people probably haven't driven their cars around here and testing. I don't say what tracks they are until we do the thing. So yeah, you don't really know quite what your car's going to do. These can be quite understeery if you put the power down a little too soon. many cars ended off wide at the end of the straight and on that final corner as well. There is no real advantage to doing that. If you go wide at the end of the straight, you're losing time. In the final corner, you're certainly not gaining anything. So yeah, I don't really care. The thing that was good to see is there was plenty of action everywhere, near enough. I was having a tough time trying to pick what camera to use, what group to follow, because there was so much blooming stuff going on. I think there were a couple of cars at the back that may have been damaged at some point, but everywhere else there was groups of 2 or 3 throughout most of the field. The car that we're following at the moment is going to have a little off-track excursion, running a little bit wide. As I said, many cars visited that particular bit of runoff area, and now he's coming under pressure from the American Mini that somehow the car we're following squeezes in between the pair of them, bouncing over the curbs. Yeah, the curbs here were pretty nasty as well. Certainly weren't as bad as Long Beach, but I wasn't expecting them to affect the cars as much as they did around here. You'll see there are quite a few cars bouncing around over them. And for now, that little group stays as it was. Behind me, there was a multicoloured Mini that had been keeping up. Again, we were all staying fairly close in this one. When the camera goes to show you behind, you could all see cars around you. There wasn't huge gaps in the field. The vehicle that we're following at the moment just got a little too deep into that corner. It's a funny corner, that one. There were many cars, and he's gone very wide there. Many cars you can carry a lot more speed through there than you think, until you start thinking that you can carry more speed, and then you carry far too much speed, and that's when you have problems. It's a weird old corner, that one. I'm not a huge fan of it. We saw again, there's another place, lots of cars ended up understeering off, just trying to take a little bit too much speed. Now, out of these 2 cars, as we've been seeing throughout the race, the dark blue Mini was struggling a bit on the straight line front, but was very good through the corners. And again, this is a fairly balanced track. It's a good overtaking manoeuvre there from the multicoloured Mini to sneak back up the inside. But there are some very fast corners around here that you need grip to be able to get around. So a handling car has its advantages, and of course there is a couple of fairly long straights, so a straight line speed car has its advantage as well. It works out, I think, as fairly even around here, maybe a tiny bit in favour of a straight line speed car. But you're going to want grip through this corner here, and as you can see, the dark blue Mini has pulled a fairly sizable gap by the time we get up towards turn 3. This is the corner that everybody seems to take slightly different lines. Somebody in the background got this car a long way on 2 wheels. Again, curbs were being a little bit of a pain as we come on towards the back straights. The multicoloured Mini's got a great drive on here. The blue cars ended up a little bit too wide. The cones littered the track from lap 1. Don't worry about them. One's got an awful lot of airtime. I wonder how far they got. Oh, there's one on from the grass. They got quite a long way down the track, actually. Yeah, we made a mess with the cones. Either way, the multicoloured Mini found its way past. At the front, things had been slightly less exciting. Further back, I think everybody sort of you could just about see second in the background from first, you could just about see third from second. I can't remember if I was in 4th or 5th. But yeah, it'd been slightly less action-packed right at the very front. But it's been a much closer race, and it was to be the white Mini that would take the victory here. Yeah, Silverstone was good fun. There was an awful lot of action going on there, all throughout the field. Yeah, it was a really rather good fun race. Our third and final round would go to the Prague short circuit. Only 13 cars in this one, having problems getting people blooming connected. I got a blistering start from the back yet again, made up 2 places before we ever got to the first corner. Unfortunately, Prague suffers from a similar problem to Long Beach. It is quite narrow in places, and sure enough, on the opening lap, there was a little bit of bumping coming into the tunnel. I managed to avoid it this time, didn't have broken suspension, and my car was actually pretty damn good around this one. As we come onto the back straight, this is where my vehicle has its strengths in the straight line speed. I can cruise up alongside the red Mini and get past him before we ever get to the corner. There is a blue car behind me that is also pretty damn quick in a straight line. We proceed to do the very brave, going too wide. Both of us were going too wide through the chicane there. A little bit of lag sees the blue Mini get past as well. Yeah, that was pretty damn scary. Going too wide through there. Made even scarier by the curves. You may have seen in the back of shot there was a car in the wall. One thing I hadn't thought about at all was one particular curb here. don't normally have this problem, but it is an absolute car killer for the minis. This particular, the car that we're following at the moment, the dark blue Mini, did a very good job of saving that. Well done on stopping that going into the wall. But basically you hit the first part of the chicane, and it throws the back of the minis up in the air. Now some cars will have different setups, will have different parts on, but for a number of cars it was just chucking the back into the air. There was a car in the wall on the opening lap, that's what happened to him. It happened to a number of people, me included, on this one. So I was having a nice little battle over, I think it was third place at this point in the race. Coming through the first part of the chicane, I get it a little bit wrong, run a bit wide, but it's okay, I can gather it back up. But we hit the curb. And I think the reason I had such a big crash is when I hit the curb, the back wheels came up, but one of the front wheels remained on the track, so I was steering, preparing to land it, and yeah, it just went round. It is a horrible curb. Again, didn't really think that we would have this problem in Forza 5 as much, because, you know, we don't normally see cars kind of rolling, and certainly didn't realise that curb was so bad for the minis. I guess it's something to do with light weight and probably weight displacement in some of these cars. Yeah, amazingly though, my car had suffered no damage from that, despite the bump into the wall. Everything was working okay, which I'm not sure. I don't quite know how that one works, if I'm honest. Anyway, back towards the front. This is over second and third place between a red light blue Mini and the dark blue Mini that very nearly run into the back of me. After I had my big crash, were all in the middle of a race. Now again, there are quite a few cars had their own accidents across that curb, so the field did get quite spread out through parts, or through most of this race, to be honest, as cars had to take trips into the pits. The dark blue Mini was another car that had an awful lot of straight line speed, and he again gets brave, doing probably overtake of the evening, that one, getting up the inside there at such high speeds is pretty damn tough to do. In the background, the light blue Mini finds out how nasty the curbs can be. Yeah, that's a pretty damn good overtake to get your car carry that much speed and get up the inside at that corner. That's pretty brave. That's a little bit brave. You got to have a lot of trust in your car that it's going to have enough grip. As I said, my car was amazingly intact after my many adventures, so I continued to push on, and I think I was up to 4th place here. The car in front got, he too got a little bit too much on the curbs. Did well to save it. You could sometimes save it. You'll see a few times people save these. Because they're front-wheel drive, if you boot it at just the right point, you can bring your car back. The advantages of having these as front-wheel drive, if these were rear-wheel drive over those curbs, it would be atrocious. I don't know. I don't think you could save them ever, really. It would be a lot worse. Because they are front-wheel drive, you can sometimes get away with it. I eat an awful lot of curb on the way into turn 1, and for about the 3rd time this race, had my car up in the air. Yeah, don't do that. If you're coming into turn 1 here with a very small light car, do not be kind of aggressive going at the curb, because you get an awful lot of airtime. That was another scary moment that luckily I managed to stop it in time. But yeah, you don't really want to be doing that. As we come on to the back straight, this is where I make up my time. I can close into the gold car. Also helped that he had a fairly poor run onto the straight, but it's quite hard to overtake around this track. This chicane, I don't really want to be overtaking here unless I absolutely have to. And then this chicane, everybody was permanently worried about having a big accident on. Your best overtaking spots are into this final corner, or probably into the first one. The final corner, though, can be a little bit tricky to overtake on, as I was finding, having twice in a row lost out to the gold car that was managing to get a cutback on me. But as I said, I did have the straight line speed advantage. I could pull alongside, but into turn 1, that would put me on the outside. I didn't really fancy my chances. As I said, I had more of the straight line speed car. I think the gold car was perhaps a little bit more on the handling front, so I backed out of that one and would have to wait my chance as we come up towards a fast double left-hander that quite a few people were having problems with understeer on. The car in front just got a little bit too much on the curb in the run into the corner, which was enough to put him out of place for the exit. And with my superior straight line speed and a much better line coming onto the back straight, it was fairly straightforward for me to get the pass done. I was going a bit too sideways for comfort into the fast chicane as we go across the horrible curbs. There's a lot of airtime from the gold Mini this time, and a big slide and a bump into the wall. Yeah, most cars visited that wall at some point, I think, in this one. It is our own wall of champions for FailRace. At the front, it was the googly-eyed car that had led most of the race. On the final lap, the dark blue vehicle had caught up. They hit a back marker at about the worst place imaginable, and then a lag bump sent everything to hell, which is a real shame. In the end, it was a weird lag bump because it's just off camera. The blue car got bumped into the side of the googly-eyed one, and it looked like the blue car came off worst initially, and then there's a little bit of weird lag, and the sort of bogey greeny car ends up sideways, which is a shame because it was a pretty good race at Prague, considering the horrible bloody curb, the two horrible curbs that were there. Yeah, so it turns out I wasn't really thinking too much about curbs when it came to this one, and they messed the Minis up quite a bit. It was a challenge. It was certainly a challenge. Silverstone was great fun. I wanted to use tracks that we don't normally see in Forza 4, hence why I picked these ones. And, well, didn't quite go to plan, but still, there was some good racing to be had. Either way. However, that is it for this one. The next FailRace versus the Community shall be on Thursday the Thursday the 24th of July. We shall be back on Forza 4. We shall be running A-class cars with V-configured engines. So you can have a V6, V8, V10, V12. I think you can get V12s in A-class. You can, it can be any V-configured engine. You can engine swap, so a car that doesn't normally come with a V engine yet, you can put a V engine in that, and that is absolutely fine. And it shall be run, as always, at 7 PM at British summertime. If you wish to take part, then you can sign up on our forums. There'll be a link in the description. Find the FailRace versus the Community section, and the sign-up thread will be in there. However, that is it for today, guys, so thank you very much for watching. And until next time, goodbye.